Welcome everyone to episode 4 of the Gamer Breakfast Show. I'm your host Clay. This is your other host Jordan.
That's me.
We're back. We're live on Twitch again, and we got one viewer. I think it's me
Oh,
because I'm
are you
viewing.
entertained?
Pretty good so.
Are you enjoying it?
Pretty good so far. But yeah, we're on episode 4. I think this could be a fun episode. I got some
Cool.
feedback that we've been kind of negative.
We've been negative?
We've been not positive.
Oh, okay. Well, that would be negative, I think.
Well, it's easy to do, right?
It could be neutral.
Yeah, I think I've read like something like 50% of words are negative, and then like 20% are neutral, and only like 30% are positive.
Yeah, we're just constrained by the English language.
Yeah, it's just the
It's
language
not our fault.
and human
It's just
nature.
there's not enough words to convey positivity.
But
Blame Thomas Jefferson or whoever came up with English.
this episode's gonna be fun because I think we're talking about stuff that we both really like, so it should be easy to be positive.
All right.
So, but anyways,
I don't like anything though.
yeah, I know, man.
I live in a constant negative spiral, a negative feedback loop.
First off, I wanted to thank our friend Noi. We got the new logo up on the overlay. You're gonna start seeing it pop up here and there if you follow our. We got a new Facebook fan page, and so you can see the logo there. I changed the Twitter logo, so it looks really good. I'm really happy with it. She made 3 versions of it. So thanks, Noi, if you're listening. It looks awesome. We're going to use it all over the place.
That's very nice.
I probably should have showed it to Jordan.
Probably.
You can take my word for it, there, right? Yeah, it looks good. It's like a cast iron skillet, and it's got kind of like a Nintendo controller like inside the skillet.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Looks like it's like frying up the controls, sort of thing. So yeah, that's fun. Yeah, I mentioned the Facebook. I'm gonna start probably sharing, like basically just kind of double dipping, like whatever I post on Twitter, I'll probably just post it at the same time to Facebook because a lot of people don't use Twitter. So I thought that'd be a better way to reach some more people. So if you're already following Twitter, you probably don't need to follow Facebook. It's going to be the same stuff. So
be sure to follow the Game of Breakfast Snapchat. We're in our Periscope. We're constantly periscoping. Like just random times during the day. Like 3 a.m. we'll be periscoping.
I've never actually periscoped, but this is my I do stream once in a while, and we do want to or I do want to start streaming a little more again now that I got a PC that can handle it. So try to figure out that in the future. I don't know what's people really want to see that or not, but the most viewers I've ever had on a stream is only like a dozen. So it's not like, I don't know. And that was like for Strider. Had to be playing something really weird.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, you're the one guy playing Strider on the internet.
Yeah, that's what we should pick something weird.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I don't know enough about games.
Yeah.
Like Solitaire.
Free cell.
Spider Solitaire, man. We'll get real crazy up in here.
Also, I'd like to mention we got approval in iTunes just like 3 hours ago. So should if you're an audio listener, if that's more your thing, or like my sister who was like streaming YouTube on her phone and then she used all her data in the car. But,
I have to confess something. I have no idea what data is.
Yeah,
like I just feel like I have unlimited data.
Yeah, I think some people still do, and like most people don't use their data. But I guess if you are streaming a lot in the car, that's one way to. That's like one way to like if you're really trying to use your data, that's the way to do it. Is just stream YouTube, I guess.
I stream constantly. That's all I do. I stream Amazon radio.
And you never ran out of data?
What's that?
You never ran out of data?
I don't think so.
Well, good for you.
My bill's always like the same amount.
But yeah, we should start showing up in iTunes. It said it's going to take a few days for them to index it. So like if you just search, it won't be there quite yet, but in the next couple of days, you'll see it. So
yeah, so be sure to subscribe to iTunes
and leave a 5-star review. Yeah.
Snapchat, Instagram.
All right, we got our 5 minutes of social media talk out of the way.
I'm not done yet. I got all sorts of stuff.
Instagram.
Man. Sign up at our official pen pal sign up page, and Clay will personally write you a letter every week.
Oh man!
Send us self-addressed stamped envelope with your letter, and Clay will write you back. He's got beautiful handwriting.
I think we need maybe I'll work on getting a PO box.
Yeah, it's like calligraphy.
So how was your weekend, man? I guess you went to wrestling again.
I did go to wrestling again for 2 weeks in a row, man. That's a lot of wrestling to take in a month's time.
So did you run into did you notice people there that you saw at the last one?
Yeah. There were a lot of the same people.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I forgot about it, and I was walking back from the Y, and I just worked out. And there's this guy that was at the wrestling the first night of wrestling that was there, and he was working out, and he's like, "Didn't I see you at this wrestling thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I was there." It's like, it was a good time. He's like, "Oh yeah, there's one on Friday too." So then I remembered it. So I got my tickets pretty late. I only saw about half the show because I was busy doing other stuff because I had made other plans because I forgot this was going on. But it was fun. There's a good pop punk band there called the Copyrights. They played. There was some burlesque, which was something, I guess.
Not as good as the Koopa Troopa one.
No, the Koopa Troopa one was kind of funny. But they had a couple guys from Lucha Underground there that were super short.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
you didn't realize how short they are.
Who'd you say it was? It was Joey Ryan and
Son of Havoc.
Son of Havoc, yeah.
But he wasn't wearing his Son of Havoc stuff. He was just normal, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
He was a nice guy though. I talked to him for a while. I'm like, dude, because it was his matches that got me into it because he was in that trios where they wrestle 3-on-3.
Mm-hmm.
And those were the ones where I was like, holy, this is great. This is fun to watch. So I was like, hey man, I didn't watch wrestling for years, and then all of a sudden I was watching your stuff and you got me back into it. He's like, oh man, that's a huge compliment. Thank you very much. He's a nice guy.
Did you ask him what's up with Angelica?
Yeah, he broke his arm.
Okay.
Yeah. But he's coming back, he said. Because they were way ahead in filming. So you couldn't talk much about it.
Oh yeah, I guess that would spoil it or whatever.
Yeah. So he
was wearing the Gift of the Gods belt. You're like, how'd you get that?
Yeah.
So it was a better show than the last one, or is it just different? It sounds different if there's a band playing and stuff.
Yeah, it was different. This one was a lot more comedy.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't so much the first one was what you'd expect from a wrestling show. This was more just a big party atmosphere. There were a lot of weird gimmick wrestlers and stuff.
Yeah. Full size ring and everything though, or it's just
Yeah, it was a full size ring. It was kind of hard to see because it was the way the bar was laid out. It was tough to see everything, but it was cool. Yeah, Scott Hall was there, so he was a nice guy, dude. He looked good. So he was on death's door a few years ago.
He wasn't wrestling though. He's just a personality or something. Or was he wrestling?
Yeah, he came and he did a special appearance, but he won a title. They have a title that's 24/7. So all he did was after the guy was knocked out, he just came out and put his foot on him and in that way.
Yeah.
So he won the championship, I guess. But No, he didn't like do anything crazy because he's like, I don't know, probably 60 or
Yeah. Ah, that's cool, man.
60 is probably pretty old. He's probably 50 something.
So what show are you going to this Friday?
I don't know, man. I got to go out of town probably.
Ambrose is the new champ. I don't know if you saw that or not.
No,
He
I haven't
cashed in.
watched.
He won the Money in the Bank, and then like he cashed it in the next match.
Oh yeah.
Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns, and then like
Oh,
immediately cashed it in, and like Seth Rollins won, and then he immediately cashed it in and beat Seth Rollins. So
all right.
yeah,
Oh
so they're
man, full Seth
probably
Rollins
setting
though.
up the triple threat for SummerSlam or something. So
That's not very fair to Seth Rollins.
yeah, it's like comes back as champ for a minute.
Yeah, no, I don't.
I guess he got hit with the Money in the Bank briefcase. Like that's how he cashed it in. He just hit him with the briefcase. It's pretty good.
No, I haven't watched WWF like for a long time.
Yeah, I think WrestleMania is the last time I watched it. I hadn't really watched it
Yeah,
before that very much. So
yeah, same thing with me. I don't know who most of the people are, but
I didn't.
no, yeah. So I'm probably done with wrestling for a while.
Yeah,
That should do me. But it was a good time. I had a
nice.
good time.
I didn't do too much. I just watched that Cavs game. That's about it.
That game was awesome.
Yeah, I was really happy for them. I thought it was great. I, it's like how many times like there's so much hype. Like LeBron's won the champion. Everyone knows LeBron's great, but like just thinking about like there was so much hype surrounding that guy when he first came in, and like who actually lives up to that amount of hype? Like no one ever.
Yeah.
And he actually did it.
Well, yeah, he's like the first guy. Because, well, everyone is kind of in the shadow of Michael Jordan. You know, nobody can like be as good as Michael Jordan was. So it'd always be like, this guy's going to be as good as Michael Jordan, and like nobody can be as good as Michael Jordan.
Hmm.
But like LeBron's just so different than Michael Jordan. You know, he doesn't really have to live. He still has to live in that shadow, but a little bit less.
Yeah.
Because like Michael Jordan wasn't as good as Michael Jordan was. You know, he's not going to like lead the series in rebounds and assists.
You're
And,
right.
yeah, like every conceivable stat.
Blocks off the backboard.
Well, Michael Jordan did block off the backboard though. Like what's like one of my favorite basketball memories of all time was when Michael Jordan was with the Wizards and he was playing. I think he was playing the Chicago Bulls, and he was like sick. He had the flu or something because he like always had the flu, so he wasn't playing well. And he like he was down and he was shooting like a jump shot and he got blocked by like some young guy.
Hmm.
And the young guy took off and was like he got the ball and was driving down to score. And like Michael Jordan just comes down and he two hands. He
Oh,
takes
just
the
pinned
ball
it.
and just pins it against the backboard and like just like catches the ball, comes down with it, and is just like talking trash because he was just so mad that he got blocked by this guy. So he just chased him down and pinned it down with two hands. So
At 40 years old, not bad.
yeah, no, he was at the Wizards at that point. He was way past his most athletic years. But there's nothing better than a chase down block. That's like my favorite thing in basketball.
Yeah, I was really happy for him, and just being in Ohio during that time when LeBron was like the thing, and I don't know, was always just became an instant LeBron fan just being there, and yeah, I was so happy for him. The main thing I thought though was like, how much does it suck to be Anderson Varejao?
Well, Anderson Varejao. Well, here's the funny thing is Anderson Varejao, because he was on the Cavs for so long, he gets a ring.
Really?
Yeah, so he was guaranteed a ring either way.
Oh, that's
But
funny.
the funny thing though is since he's got this ring from the Cavaliers, can he like wear that around? Because he got beat, you know,
Right.
like in the finals. So it'd be weird for him just to be like walking around with like his Cavs championship ring.
Yeah, it's a little fishy at that point, isn't it? Of course, he wins one either way, so
Yeah.
it's really funny. I didn't know that, so
Yeah. No. I read that. Like when the series first started, he was like he's guaranteed a ring either way. So. But yeah, just him like walking around with his Cavs ring when he like.
Uh,
Like, what if he's still with the Warriors next year? He's like in the locker room. He's like, oh man, look at my
yeah.
ring.
I saw Richard.
Snickers.
I thought Richard Jefferson like retired already.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, he
Uh,
retired. He's gonna write personal essays or something.
nice.
Yeah, well, good for him.
I'd read one of those. Probably
Yeah.
about one. um, I guess we could get into our main topic today. Last week, a comic came out called "The Dark Knight Returns: The Last Crusade," and this was a prequel to "The Dark Knight Returns," um, and that's kind of the seminal work by Frank Miller that we talked about, I think, on previous episode, maybe episode 2, that we're both
Hmm.
big fans of. I had kind of forgotten about this. The Dark Knight Returns: The Last Crusade was going to be a thing, and but then I just noticed it in like the previews listing that it was coming out that week. So I said, oh, kind of forgot they were even doing that because it's kind of strange because right now you have the Dark Knight 3 Master Race going on, and they're about halfway through that, and then they kind of release another story that is not really related at all. I mean, it's related, but it's different time frame and everything. So I'd just kind of forgotten about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat. I knew it was coming out there because I was kind of excited for it. Um, and yeah, but I had no idea it was coming out like last week until like the comics listings came out like 2 weeks ago or whatever.
Hmm.
So I was like, oh, sweet. Yeah, because we did talk about it because it's kind of like we talked about it like in Watchmen, and you
Right.
were being like extremely negative,
I know.
and I was just like, man, I just want to see how this plays out because this is kind of like uh, DC Comics is doing the same thing here that they're doing there, which is they're basically just trying to exploit, uh, their properties that they own.
Right.
But this one doesn't bother me very much because it's Batman. I mean, like
Mm.
Batman's there to be exploited,
Yeah.
like
There's no more. There's probably more Batman stories than anyone,
yeah.
or
And
more.
Frank Miller's involved. Like now, to the extent that he is involved, I don't know, but he's at least involved. He's not like Alan Moore being like, why are you doing this to me? I'm just a poor old man.
Oh yeah. Just a little side note. Uh, I can't remember. I don't know the guy's name, but whoever the artist is for Watchmen, who's kind of has signed off on this stuff a little bit. Not signed off on it, but
Yeah,
was
like
not.
acquiesced,
Yeah.
like took the money. Yeah,
Yeah. It was not
um,
like totally like. It was more like. I just heard an interview with the guy. Like, I guess for like this whole like rebirth thing, like they didn't like for the whole like before Watchmen and the movie, he was like a consultant on the movie and stuff. But for this
yeah,
whole like DC rebirth thing, like they didn't tip them off at all. And like, why would
yeah,
they? Because they would have said what I,
yeah. It would have been nice to tell like but they, like that they opened up the floodgates there. Yeah, like Dave Gibbons kind of like he's the artist, and he kind of gave like a tepid like it's okay they can do this, but he it was always like very tempered.
hmm.
It was kind of like our story stands alone. Like we're very proud of it.
Yeah.
Like I'm not involved in this, but
But may they find success. It was something like
yeah,
may they find the
yeah,
same success that we had, or something like that.
yeah. Which of course they're not because they're just digging at bones. But yeah, I mean, once they open those floodgates, it's like, hey, now they're just like, who cares? We've already done before Watchmen, so now we're just going to do whatever we want.
Right.
So,
Uh, I thought we'd just talk quickly about the first two Dark Knight books in the series, and maybe just leave Master Race until later, until it's done, because it's hard to kind of talk about it until it's done. So,
yeah,
but maybe we could just talk about the first two briefly, because I really like both of them, and they're a lot different, and I like them for different reasons. But they're I thought first of all, like I know you introduced me to this comic when I was like I want to say like eighth grade, ninth grade, something like that. I remember I was sick, and like I don't exactly remember, but you just dropped by my house and said, "Hey, read this while you're sick," basically.
Yeah,
It's
that's what I
something for me
normally
to
do.
do.
I'm like a diseased Santa Claus.
Yeah.
If you're sick, I'm gonna show up with something to do, some
And it
homework.
was nice, and I loved it. It took me like the afternoon to read it, or something like that, and it was great. But do you remember how you were tipped off to The Dark Knight Returns? I mean, because this we were both born in '82. This came out in something like '86, maybe.
86, yeah. And that him and
So we were
Edison.
4 years old. So like, how did you learn about this? Do you remember?
Well, I mean, I think I was into comics like since I was in elementary school. So I always went to the comic shop,
Hmm.
and there was always like and I would pick up like the newest X-Men issue or something, that your tastes aren't developed yet, and I had no interest in but there's always this like we should talk about it like our comic shop. We had this comic shop called M&M Comics, which burned down under mysterious circumstances.
All the number ones were removed before.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I always heard it was uh, maybe intentional, but I didn't. I never saw how it all turned out. Um, but it's not there anymore, so you can't go. You can go to the charred remains.
Yeah.
Because we used to pop down there every once in a while because it was within walking distance, And we'd stop off at the music go around so you could look at guitars. And we
Hmm.
could get gumballs from the machine that told jokes.
That's right.
And but there's always like this like where the mature comics were. So like the Vertigo comics, like Sandman, and like Dark Knight Returns is one of those. So there's always the trade there. And like eventually, I just got to a point where I'm like, you've heard about Dark Knight Returns, and you hear like, oh, it's good, and it had Batman in it, so
Hmm.
I ended up buying it with like my allowance or something, and it was just great. I mean, it was like instantly like when you read it, you're like, oh man, all this other stuff I'm reading is like total garbage compared to this. And I remember like the guy that ran the comic shop, who was
Yeah.
always like playing with matches,
Yeah, Mike.
like
Or
lighter fluid. Yeah, I probably shouldn't use his name, uh, but he got. I remember because I came and I had like a free like comic book thing, and I was there like every week. So I'm sure he was just like sick of seeing me because I'm a kid.
yeah.
But it's probably like the frustration that comes with like owning a comic shop and like if you like comics, you're
Hmm.
probably frustrated because like the majority of what people read is not good.
Hmm.
And and I remember like one day he like actually did like go off on me a little bit. He's like, "You got a free comic and you're just buying the same crap that you always buy." He didn't say it in that words, like, but it was based. That's like the gist of it.
Yeah.
Like why don't you try something new instead of just buy the same stuff? And and it was true because it's like once I got like the Dark Knight Returns, and I'm like, this is a really good comic, and it had meaning to it, and the art was excellent, and the story was excellent, and it just presented things in such a different way than what I was used to. It like instantly raised my taste level,
Hmm.
like 50%. And the
Yeah.
stuff that I was reading like just did not have the same interest to me anymore.
Hmm.
It just because it was just so exciting and so raw and so uh, powerful that I instantly was just like, okay, yeah, this like spider clone story that I'm reading, that stuff's terrible. Like this is actually good.
Right.
Uh, and from that point on, I think, after that is when I bought Watchmen. And after that is when I, started reading some of the Vertigo stuff, and eventually got into like Preacher when I was, in high school and stuff,
Hmm.
and like all that just stems from it's just like, oh, maybe I should buy this grown-up book because now I'm a little bit more of a grown-up.
Well, that's also when you started reading Milk and Cheese, right?
Yeah, I've always yeah. Yeah, the bastion of maturity is milk and cheese, which was which if readers don't know, milk and cheese is about a glass of milk and a wedge of cheese that just go around just stabbing people with broken bottles and drinking alcohol.
I'm
So,
sorry. I'm
so
sorry.
yes, I mean, I would say that around that time I was probably reading some Milk and Cheese. But I probably would say that Milk and Cheese uh, wasn't quite as mature, but it was excellent. I do recommend Milk and Cheese to everyone.
Had you did you start reading more Frank Miller stuff at that time? Was he like doing at that time? Was he like doing a mainstream comic or anything? Or?
No, I mean, I did get into Daredevil
Mhm.
because I hadn't read the old Daredevil stuff.
Yeah, and that was before this, even I think, right?
Yeah, that was where he first got famous. And I actually I'll have something on the site once I rewrite it.
Ooh, neat.
That's really about like Daredevil because Daredevil was really important to me too because that was like the next step. Like the Dark Knight Returns was uh, and still is my favorite work by Frank Miller.
Hmm.
But Daredevil was really important to me too because it really spoke to me and those characters. I just to this day, and this is kind of what I'm going to be writing about is like I have a connection to those characters, and I buy a lot of crappy comics with those characters in it just because I loved what Frank Miller did so much that those characters still are important to me. And then the Cedar Rapids Public Library had a copy of Give Me Liberty, which I checked out. And Give Me Liberty is by Dave Gibbons, who we were talking about earlier, the artist of Watchmen. And Frank Miller wrote that. He didn't draw it. But it's a series that they had called, and the main character is called Martha Washington. And it's set in the future, and it's like similar kind of setting to Dark Knight Returns,
Yeah.
but it's more of a parody.
Okay.
But it's great. Give Me Liberty. Like when you're talking about my favorite works in comics, Dark Knight Returns is there, and Give Me Liberty, the Martha Washington stuff, is really, really close. That stuff has a lot of meaning to me, and it's just great. And is just another aspect of taking like a science fiction story and making it something that has literary meaning to me that helped me become a gateway reader to like literature and stuff like that. So.
Sure. Let's just talk about the book real quick here. And kind of like one of the very interesting things is when you read these Dark Knight stories is there's kind of the kind of the signature or trademark of some of these stories is kind of the talking head thing they do.
Yeah.
Where they basically there's a lot of like quick panels that are just a talking head that's usually from some media outlet. In the Dark Knight Returns, it's like the morning shows, or it's the news reporters, or there's radio people. And in Strikes Again, it gets more into politicians, but it's a lot of talking heads also, and internet celebrities, kind of like us. Like we could be,
Yeah.
we could have panels in the next Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Be
We'll
pretty
be in
meta.
the new.
Yeah. But it's just a really cool way where he can like kind of comment on he can make his like kind of comment on society through not a character in the story, but kind of like just a general comment on the state of things. I don't know, it's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's capture the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
And also present just the differing viewpoints because like well, just for some basic background information, if anyone doesn't know this, Dark Knight Returns is about Batman coming out of retirement when he's an older man. He's basically become Bruce Wayne for a while and just put Batman behind him, and then kind of one day just kind of snaps and becomes Batman again. So it's that story, and like the media stuff that they do, it's a lot of like inset panels, and they're just tiny. One of the cool things about the Dark Knight Returns is there's a lot of panels. I mean, there's pages on in the Dark Knight Returns that are like 20 panels. And I think that's what you get when you have a guy that both writes it and draws it. You know, he's just a cartoonist, so he's doing what he wants, and he's not having to communicate that to another person. But there's like these little panels of like television shows, and then underneath will be a caption that'll be like the dialogue, and that's something that I read all these like 80s and 90s comics now, and like every comic that comes out after that uses that same technique.
Really?
Like if you open up like the first couple of Spawn issues, I mean the same thing, like somebody on TV talking, and then underneath like the dialogue.
It's not even a speech bubble. It's like it's just right under the panel.
Yeah.
Kind of all through that book they do that a lot, where the letters are just kind of usually underneath. They're not really in a speech bubble or anything.
Yeah, and it's kind of his narrative way to do, like like if you're watching an old like 70s or 80s movie, and there's always like some like, especially it's something about a vigilante or something like that, and there's always these like cuts to like people on the street with like a microphone in their face, and like one person will be like, "Oh, what he's doing is terrible," and then the other person will be like, "No, it's good, these scumbags are finally getting murdered." And that was a way for him to use that like technique, but to integrate the media, like the different kind of media into it.
Right.
And it was a really cool way to show like all this crazy stuff that's happening. Like there's people that just hate Batman and think he's like unaccountable, and he's terrible. And then you have like the Travis Bickle type guy that like just paints like just goes into a theater and starts killing people, because like he's been inspired by Batman. So everything's kind of like that ambiguous, like, all right, you have these like caricatures, like these liberal caricatures that are like, oh, Batman, he's coddle, or like we need to coddle these poor
criminals,
criminals. And then, but you also have these like right-wing fanatic people that are like, no, let's murder, like people in the street for like playing their music too loud, So it was very
effective, I guess.
Yeah, very effective.
Yeah, the book's basically it originally came out as 4 different comics, and it's kind of laid out as the first is kind of Batman just kind of mulling over coming back, and kind of the Two-Face is kind of the main impetus of that, I guess. Two-Face has been healed, and but not really. He's actually still a bad guy, but it's there's kind of a neat ending to that part of the book where when Batman finally does come out of retirement and confronts him, and he doesn't look like Two-Face anymore. He's had plastic surgery or whatever. But when the panel's cool where he says, "Look at me" or something like that, and I think like it shows Two-Face, but his entire face is all disfigured instead of just his face. And then it shows the next panel, and it's really not, he's seeing the inner Two-Face or whatever. And I always like that part. He says something like, "Yeah, I see a reflection" or something like that.
And if you like, and just the way the artwork is presented, like shows that conflict so well. Because I mean, like the whole part of that book is like he's retired, and he's just got like he's Bruce Wayne. He's even got a mustache, And the first one of the first scenes is him like driving this race car, and he's got this like helmet over, so it kind of looks like he's Batman, but the whole thing is about him like coming back and like um, and it's reflected not only in the story but the art, because I think a lot of times with comics, like people don't appreciate like the artwork that goes into it, but this is like one of the works that, like, if you look at how the art is presented, it tells that story as well as the words do.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just like a guy wrestling with his inner demons, and how that's reflected in uh, Harvey Dent as well. So, and it's been something that's been quite frankly stolen from,
Hmm.
like, multiple times, because it's just such a important piece of work.
The second book talks more is kind of the story of the mutant gang. I don't think they're actually mutants, but they kind of almost presented almost like the leader is like kind
Yeah,
of this muscle bound guy. He's not actually a mutant, but like you know they look like freaks pretty much. And
yeah,
it's also kind of where they start. They basically introduce the new Robin character, uh, Carrie Kelly. Is that right?
yeah,
Something like
yeah,
that. And yeah, that's kind of like the part I always liked about this. I always liked this second book because it's Batman has returned as Batman, and he gets a Robin on his side, but he kind of has his first loss, or he loses a fight basically, and then he has to kind of like reassess why what it means to be like an older Batman and where he went wrong, kind of type thing.
yeah.
It also kind of harkens back to the first book, I guess, and this is gonna kind of go into this new story is like why he retired in the first place. Um, it's kind of unclear, but like they have signs that like there was a Robin at one time and he's dead now, or something
Mhm.
happened to him. Like his suit is still in the Batcave, but I think they flat out say he died or whatever. But
Yeah, they say he was a good soldier and he sacrificed.
yeah,
Uh,
so
yeah,
this is kind of there's also kind of this, uh, and this is kind of throughout all the Dark Knight stories is kind of this like paternal instinct of Batman as it relates to Robin, I guess.
yeah. Reflected really weirdly in the second story, uh, but
It seems like a
yeah,
big part of the master race too, which we're not really going to go into, but again, like it's
yeah,
kind of the focus, I think.
yeah. Yeah, I mean it's kind of interesting with the Robin thing, because at that time there was the Robin they're referring to is Jason Todd, who is like the second Robin in the comic books, and the first Robin having grown up and become a different superhero named Nightwing, like in the regular comic book universe, you know.
Hmm.
So like Jason Todd, they talked about him like dying in the Dark Knight Returns, and they eventually ended up killing Jason Todd in the regular comic books. I think because of this story. And it was weird. They had like a 1-900 number where you could vote whether or not like Robin lived or died, and like people actually voted, and they come out that it was dead to vote for him to die. So he was basically like executed by the comics audience.
They wanted blood.
Yeah, they wanted blood, and now he's back. Now they brought him back for some reason. So now there's like 50 Robins running around, but that's neither here nor there. But that's kind of like just a reflection on how like the Dark Knight Returns. It was almost like that story helped shape what Batman would become, like just in the regular. I mean, you see it in the movies too, like the Nolan movie, like Dark Knight Rises. You know, he comes out of retirement and he's got a messed up knee and stuff.
Hmm.
And of course, Batman versus Superman is just, straight up take stuff from. Uh,
Yeah, well, we can kind of skip to that part. Yeah, the story. There's a third book is basically a showdown with the Joker, and which is awesome. Uh, it's kind of like the whole and I guess you're talking about the Batman movies. They kind of stole this too. Is what it was like at the very end of the first Nolan movie. They have the whole. He has the talk with Gordon. Batman has the talk with Gordon about escalation or whatever. He's
Yeah.
It's like you're wearing a cape, and now there's going to be crazy people type thing. And
Yeah.
that's kind of laid out in this, where Joker has been in the insane like Arkham Asylum, but Batman is back, so he has kind of a reason to he has a reason to live again. So like it kind of wakes him up, and he promptly escapes and wreaks havoc or whatever. So um, and that'll kind of, we can talk more about that in the last, when we talk about the Last Crusade too. But yeah, and the fourth book is kind of the, so like Batman has been kind of taking back Gotham. And for some reason, the U.S. government like gets pissed about this, and like so they sick Superman on.
Yeah. Like the president's Ronald Reagan still,
Yeah.
because it came out in the '80s, and like a
So yeah,
little.
I think during the dark, the what's it called, Justice Rising or whatever, what was it called, Batman versus Superman,
Dawn of
Rise of Justice,
Justice.
Dawn of
Dawn
Justice,
of Justice.
a rise or a dawn or something. But
Yeah, it's the Dawn. Yeah.
yeah, so there was a lot that movie got wrong. For sure. There was a kind of a few cool scenes that like they ripped right from the comic that looked pretty good, I thought. But
Yeah.
the reason it works so well, so there's a Superman fight in the comic as well, and that's kind of the story of the fourth book. The reason it works like so great in this book is because they reference all the history between the characters, and uh, like all this pent up uh, clash of how to do things.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like they build up through it throughout the book, throughout all the books, with there's scenes of Superman basically saving the world in one way or another. But his inner monologue, he's just kind of thinking about Batman while he's doing this stuff.
Yeah.
And so you get all this like great history between the characters, and that's why like this fight works so well at the end. Whereas in the movie, like the characters had never met each other really, and that fight just falls pretty flat, I think, because I mean, you know in your mind that these characters have history, but in this movie world, they literally have zero history.
Yeah.
So the fight is just not impactful.
Well, it's like I've only read like The Dark Knight Returns as a complete book,
Mm-hmm.
um, but it is amazing, like how each book has a climax, and all of those climaxes are awesome. Like
Mm-hmm.
the first one with the Harvey Dent stuff, that's perfect. The second one with the mutants is like one of my favorite moments in comics ever. Is when he has the second fight with the mutant in the mud pit,
Oh yeah.
and like there's all this stuff, great stuff in the first book too about him, like basically like crippling criminals and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite moments in that is also taken and used in Batman vs Superman, where he has a gun, and like one of the like punk mutant kids is like, I'm gonna shoot this girl, I'm gonna shoot her, believe me, I'm gonna do it. And so then Batman shoots him, and he's like, I believed you. It's just like a cool Dirty Harry type line.
Right.
But then the fight with the in the mud pit with the mutants, there's all this first person narration, and it's like one of the most badass like narrations, that he almost took to self parody in like Sin City and stuff. But it's just like, like this isn't a mud pit, this is an operating table,
Oh yeah.
and I'm the
Sure.
surgeon. That's just such a great line.
Yeah.
And so that fight, awesome. And then the Joker confrontation is just great.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fourth book ends with him fighting Superman. So
Right.
like every single one of those books just has like just this great climax. Like by itself, one of those stories would have been awesome. But you put like all four together, and you're just like, man, this is just a perfect way of telling the story.
Yeah, he was on point. And yeah, I think as far as great writing goes, like My favorite line in the book. Well, I have a couple of them, but like I always liked the Superman fight when I I'm gonna paraphrase, but I'll do my best. Where it's something like the Green Arrow shows up and he shoots him with the gaseous kryptonite. And shoots Superman with the gaseous kryptonite, and Batman says something like, "Yeah, gaseous kryptonite. It took me years to develop and billions of dollars. Luckily, I had both," or something like that.
Yeah.
So
No,
luckily, I had both. I just love that line.
no, there's just so many great lines in that thing. Like Commissioner Gordon is portrayed as very old in it, and gets pushed out as commissioner, like for Commissioner Yindel, who like uh, is after the Batman, which leads to some like great fight scenes in that Joker thing where he's fighting the cops as well as like
Mhm.
trying to escape after his fight with the Joker. And but Commissioner Gordon's like always like saying this line, and we used to say to each other in high school all the time. But he's like, "I think of Sarah, and the rest is easy," because
Oh yeah,
when he's shooting people,
yeah.
like mutants are confronting him, and he pulls out his gun, and he's like, "I think of Sarah, and the rest is easy," and he kills them. So I remember playing Goldeneye, and we'd always have like the old 357 Magnum or whatever. We'd always say that to each other. Like, I think of Sarah, and the rest is easy. Shoot.
I love that panel too because it shows Gordon and you don't even see the gun. You just see kind of his head tilted and like his arm outstretched. Where
Yeah,
like it's basically just his shoulder, but like he's like pointing the gun at someone. That's great. How they drew that.
yeah.
But
So
yeah, it's a yeah, I loved it when I first read it, and I go back, I read it probably once a year, I guess. And it's like always I always enjoy reading that story, and it's just it's very well written, and I think when you put it next to our next book, The Dark Knight Strikes Again, it's just very. I mean, they're trying to do two different things, I guess. That's probably the
yeah,
best way to put it.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love The Dark Knight Returns, and like I think I own more copies of The Dark Knight Returns than anybody should own of anything ever. Like I have a black and white version. I have the absolute version, which is like an oversized version. I have the old trade paperback from when I was a kid.
Uh-huh.
I love it. And then that came out in 1986, like we talked about, and Dark Knight Strikes Again came out when we were in college.
Hmm.
So like 2000 to 2001 in there. And I remember when they announced it, I was really worried because like Frank Miller kept saying that he was going to fix what he broke, basically. Because after the Dark Knight Returns came out, like it was such a monumental thing, along with his work on Daredevil, that like people were just trying to do like these grim and gritty, violent superheroes,
Hmm.
and that basically became like all superhero titles.
Right.
And so basically, when he was saying that, I was like, oh, he's gonna do some like weird, weird like campy superhero thing, and to try to like fix that,
Hmm.
and he kind of did.
Yeah.
So, uh, so that's kind of like, and I'll tell you when the Dark Knight Strikes Again, that's the name of it, came out in college, I hated it.
Yeah.
Like I loved The Dark Knight Returns so much that when it came out and it had like the ugly art
Right.
and like the really like uh, almost assaultive coloring, like it's just so
Yeah.
bright.
The coloring is really interesting because it's kind of like your digital. I guess like some digital, like early digital coloring,
Hmm.
and it basically looks like someone had just got like Photoshop for the first time and had just learned about like filters and gradients and things like that. And it like put a gradient on everything, but like just very strange looking you probably kind of unique looking, but like not good looking.
Yeah, they were trying to do something new, because Lynn Varley, who was Frank Miller's wife, uh, she was the colorist, and she colored like a lot of his important works. So she
Hmm.
colored The Dark Knight Returns. She covered Ronin. She colored this other great uh, graphic novel called Electro Lives Again, and they all kind of have that same like color tone, like kind of dark.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, The Dark Knight Strikes Again went the complete opposite direction. It's just like bright primary colors, just like
Right.
and it's sometimes even hard to look at. It's just like so colorful.
Yeah, and it's definitely a digital look to it, and has kind of this like on purpose, I think. But then it has like uh, some interesting choice where they like the coloring doesn't even like stay within the lines very well in a lot of places. I
Yeah,
think it's just kind of the whole thing looks very shabby, but it's just kind of yeah, it takes a lot to get used to actually. If you're expecting the art from like the first story and then you open this up and because you're thinking sequel, right? So you're thinking it's going to be more of the same sometimes. I mean, I guess you weren't because you were had heard what he said, but that's what you would expect is kind of more of the same with some kind of some differences, but like not not
yeah, not 180
yeah.
degrees in a different direction.
Right.
Yeah, because I mean, and it's that way with the story too. I mean, like the first story is, it's an overused cliche, but it is grim and it's gritty. I mean,
Hmm.
it's the way that Frank Miller described it. Frank Miller had all these cool lines, like when he was describing like creating the Dark Knight Returns. Like he's like, yeah, I created the Dark Knight Returns when I was 30 because Batman was always 29, and I just couldn't imagine a world where like Batman was uh, younger than I was. So that's how he came up with the story to have like an old Batman. And and then he said, and I just wanted to set him in this dark and world. And he's like, I looked out my window and I couldn't see any world darker than the one I currently lived in. So that's kind of how it was set. It was set in like our world, like just like the same world that like Death Wish and those canon films in the 1980s are, like a gritty New York that's just like crime ridden. It's Gotham City, but uh, that's kind of how it's presented. Is this and then yeah, the Dark Knight Strikes Again. It has nothing to do with the real world.
Yeah, so
But
it's like a fascist government is taken over, basically run by Lex Luthor and Brainiac. They control the U.S. The president is a hologram image, and kind of the story kind of revolves around well, has Batman fakes his own death in the first Dark Knight after the fight with Superman, and so he's kind of has been living in the shadows, but kind of slowly. I guess keeping things in order in Gotham, but and stuff is like relatively peaceful. But the problem is that um, it's kind of all fake, or it's basically this fascist regime that's taken over. So um, it's kind of a story of Batman getting the band back together, I guess, to like kind of take these guys out.
yeah, and it's really it takes things to like the verge of parody sometimes. Like the Atom, like there's all this Atom stuff in there. The Flash, uh, Plastic Man, like Plastic Man. There's always like a line in there about Plastic Man that I always just thought was hilarious. It's like he's the most powerful of us all. He could kill us all with just a single thought or something like that.
Yeah.
He's like Plastic Man. He's like the most ridiculous hero that you have, but.
that,
Yeah,
that,
it's really interesting because and part of it is I think it changed halfway through. Um, well, I know it changed halfway through because like 9/11 happened, like in the
mm,
middle of it, and like Frank Miller was really affected by 9/11
Mm-hmm.
to the point where he is still very affected by 9/11,
Right.
and it's seeped into his work, which you can see in the newest series,
Mm-hmm.
where he's very paranoid about Muslims and terrorists,
Yeah,
and
there's even some panels in this I remember with the talking heads, and one of the talking heads is a Muslim guy, and he's just saying jihad or something like that, and the
yeah,
guy off to the side is saying, "Ah, shut up" or something like that.
yeah, and there's a scene in here where Batman flies a plane into like a building,
Right.
and that happened before 9/11. But I think it just drastically changed kind of what he was going for.
Mm.
And I will say that, yeah, and it's just very bizarre. There's like a new Joker that turns out to be Dick Grayson, the original Robin, and like Batman's just the total like asshole to him.
Yeah. Yeah, you could have cut the mustard, Bunky.
Yeah,
Lines like that. Like the Batman dialogue in this isn't near as cool, I guess. It's trying to be funny, I guess, more than anything.
yeah. I mean, and Frank Miller's always like had that line between like parody and uh, just playing it straight, and it's
Mm-hmm.
always kind of like verges on comedy. Like even
Mm-hmm.
the Dark Knight Returns, there's a lot of like comedy to be found there. But like yeah, the Dark Knight Strikes Again is like where he went more over on the comedy side.
Yeah.
And so there's all these like lines like Batman's got his like feet up on the jet when they're in the jet. He's got like his feet up and he's like spreading terror is the best part of the job.
Yeah.
Stuff like,
Right.
and it's just it takes everything to the point of ridiculousness, which as somebody that was just so affected by the Dark Knight Returns, you read that and you just like when I was 18, 19 years old, I just wanted to like throw this in the garbage. I'm just like,
Yeah.
this is worthless to me because I want more of what I like.
Yeah.
And now as an older man, I guess, like I look at it and I'm like, I have something that like the Dark Knight Returns is perfect in its form. Uh, like, and to go back to that is almost like backtracking.
Sure.
So I'm like, I almost kind of like the Dark Knight Strikes Again just as its own like artifact, as like here's just this really weird thing
Yeah.
that.
And there is some good writing in there to be found. To be fair, like the part I noticed, I was kind of looking through this book before I started the show, and the part I really liked was kind of like the death of Captain Marvel, like that part, if you remember that part.
Yeah.
And they say, he says, you had it wrong. Really, I just switched places with Billy Batson or something like that. That's how it worked. And he died 8 years ago. He was never in very good health. It's like that part's kind of funny. And then I think
Yeah.
Wonder Woman or something says, where do you go? And he says, where's a wish go? Where's a dream go when you wake up and you can't remember it? Like there's some good writing in there. So like
Well,
I think it's like there's some neat stuff.
yeah, I enjoy it. I mean, you just have to divorce it from the Dark Knight Returns,
Hmm.
and part of it is too to go along with the coloring. Like Frank Miller got really into like Bigfoot abstract kind of cartooning
Sure.
during that time, and he stopped using Klaus Janson as an inker who did like Daredevil and Dark Knight Returns and Elektra Lives Again and Ronin and that stuff. So he was kind of like inking his own stuff for the first time. And so his stuff looks really cartoony and grotesque, and a lot of people hate that because in later years it's become even more cartoony and grotesque to the point where some of it is very ugly.
Yeah.
But I like that because I'm like, here's a guy taking risks and doing something. It would have been very easy for him just to do like. All right, just do another Dark Knight Returns, just set in the same universe and with the same art style. But he took it a different direction, and I don't like it as much as the Dark Knight Returns. I don't think it's very successful. I think it's a failure on a lot of levels.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'm glad he did it. and I go back and read it, every once in a while,
Yeah.
and enjoy it. So
I guess we'll kind of get to our main topic then. Is that's kind of some background, 50
yeah,
minutes of background, but
yeah, we're
so
being positive though.
yeah, no, yeah, but yeah, bottom line is if you're interested in comics at all, and if you haven't read those stories, you probably definitely The Dark Knight Returns is a great story to start off with, and then um, if you're feeling adventurous, try Dark Knight Strikes Again as well.
Yeah.
So, but and this most recent one that just came out, The Dark Knight, The Last Crusade. Um, so like Miller is listed as like a story and writing credit. I think a story by Frank Miller and Brian Azzarello.
Azarello.
Azzarello. And I think that's the guy that's also doing the story for Master Race.
Yes,
The other
yes,
Dark Knight story going on right now. And then pencils by John Romita Jr.
yes,
Um, this is a prequel, and basically this is the story of kind of why did Batman retire in the first place? So 10 years before The Dark Knight Returns, basically. Um, and first impressions is I thought it was good, and I liked it. I was kind of disappointed in the climax of it. It just kind of trails off for me a little bit, but in general, like I thought it had some good stuff in there. So we can kind of talk about it a little more.
yeah.
What were your first impressions of it?
Well, like my first impressions of it, I guess, are I don't like the idea of it. I will say that. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't. I'm a big guy that thinks like the more you explain things, like the less power they have.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a huge problem with like the Star Wars prequels and stuff, and it's the thing I complain about like all the time. And I didn't like that about like the Watchmen prequels that they came up with too. It's like sometimes stuff is left unexplained for a reason, and to explain it kind of takes away from like the mystery of it.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. Uh, Partly is because it really it's it's kind of like a tribute version of The Dark Knight Returns. Like the writing is very similar, uh, and the art is really good. And that's kind of what my takeaway from it was I this is John Romita Jr., who I think is a great artist. Um, he's he hasn't really done a huge amount of Batman before.
Yeah.
Um, but he's done Daredevil before. He did a series with Frank Miller before called The Man Without Fear, which is probably his best work. John Romita Jr.'s, and then he also did. He's been doing like the Kick-Ass series with Mark Millar, and he did run on Superman and run on X-Men and stuff like that. But I thought his art in this was fantastic.
I mean, he's definitely channeling some Miller look, I guess. I mean, it's probably like more. I don't know what you want to say, like realistic proportions and everything, but it definitely kind of channels the look of the original book. I don't know
Yeah,
his style besides this, so I can't really comment if maybe this is always just his style, but
it's definitely it's adapted to I think Frank Miller's style a bit more than his stuff usually is, and I think a lot of that is due to. Let me grab my copy here. I forgot to look who did the inking, but I'm guessing it's. Oh no, it's Peter Steigerwald did the inking. So, but it's very like the coloring and the inking wise, I think was meant to invoke the Dark Knight Returns.
mm-hmm.
Wow. Uh, I don't think his art works for everything. Like I think his Joker's a lot less creepy than like Frank Miller's Joker was in the original. But he's just a great action cartoonist. Like the action in this book is really well done.
Oh yeah, there's well, if we can kind of get into it a little bit, kind of the story is that Batman is they've recently put the Joker back in custody, and right away they used kind of the Talking Heads motif again, which was nice. Kind of gets you into that Dark Knight mood
Yeah.
with the talk show host talking about the Joker back in custody, but they bring up like Robin was involved this time, or always involved, I guess, and they hint at is it really good
Mhm.
that Batman is taking a kid around with them
Yeah.
and violence night after night and all that, and so yeah, you that's kind of the main conflict, I guess, of the book is like is Batman trying to train Robin up to replace him.
Mhm. And this brings me to like to wonder how much Frank Miller had, because I think like the voice of Batman is a little different
Hmm.
than it was in the dark. Uh, like a few, it's probably been about 7 or 8 years ago, maybe even longer. Uh, yeah, probably around 10 years ago. Frank Miller did this other book with Jim Lee called All Star Batman and Robin, which is kind of notorious. Like people really hate it
Hmm.
because that's where he took the comedy to like the utmost extreme.
Yeah, I think I've seen panels from this. It's like where
Yeah,
where Batman's like hanging out in a like he has to confront the Green Lantern, and he's in a bar that he's forced yellow Robin to paint like all yellow,
yeah,
including Batman himself is painted yellow, and he's like
yeah,
drinking lemonade.
yeah. No, it's completely ridiculous. But like one of the things that comics known for is it's like the story of how Batman basically took the first Robin, Dick Grayson, under his wing, and it's just like insane. Like he's calling him retarded. Um, he's like yelling at him all the time. He makes him like hunt a rat to eat. So he's basically like treating like this kid like terrible,
Yeah.
and he's barking orders at him all the time. And in like this comic, he's very like caring.
He is.
Like so it's because like you
Like
said, there's
he's
always like this weird paternalistic like theme that goes through these comics. Uh, and that like in the Dark Knight Returns, he's very he obviously cares for Carrie Kelly a lot, and then in the Dark Knight Strikes Again, he's still caring for Carrie Kelly, but then he's just like a total like like whatever he was doing to Dick Grayson is just like absurd. And then in the Dark Knight All Star Batman and Robin, it's just insanity, like how
yeah.
he treats this kid. So it's just weird how like that.
I get maybe Jason Todd is the one Robin he actually did like for some reason.
Yeah, him and Grayson.
It's like that middle child, or maybe the youngest child, I guess. No, I guess middle child. But
But yeah, because there's always this thing about him like training these like almost like a child soldier,
mhm.
like you're gonna fight my war after I'm done, and that's kind of been a theme throughout as well. And in this one, it seems it's like Jason Todd is almost presented as well. He is. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's pretty unambiguous. He's like pretty bloodthirsty and
Mhm.
violent, like overly violent.
He's a young man that wants to fight. Yeah, and that actually leads me like my favorite page in the book is this page where uh, Batman and Robin are trying to round up part of the Joker's gang that's still on the loose. Um, and they get in this car chase with them, and the guy's van gets blown up and flipped over, and Batman's running to the car, and he says something like, we need to get these guys out of this van before they die or before they catch on fire, and the criminal pops out the top of the van that's on its side and says, before we die. And the next panel is like Robin like stomping on the door
Yeah,
and like smashing the criminal's head, and it says something like "Who's this we?" or something like
yeah,
that. And then the bottom panels, it's a Batman talking, and he says, he puts his hand over his nose, and it's just for show, though. He's like, yeah, it stinks, but what about the smile?
Yeah, it's good. It's kind of interesting because Romita Jr. has been doing like he's done some Superman and stuff, but the last couple things that he's done are like the Kick-Ass comics with Mark Millar, where like obviously like the breakout character is like the hit girl character.
Mm-hmm.
He's like this crazy sidekick that's just completely like violent stuff. So it's kind of interesting to see that like almost brought over to this too. And I wonder if that's like subconsciously like influencing what they're doing here.
He's
Because
good
like
at drawing people getting smashed up.
yeah, like by a kid basically,
Right.
like a violent kid.
And there's
Yeah,
there's another scene where they're trying to like talk this guy down from killing this lady, and he has the gun to her head or whatever, and Batman tells Robin to throw the batarang to knock the gun out of his hand, and instead he just cuts the guy's arm off with the batarang.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
I really enjoyed it, like because I like that story. I like the story that they're telling, and I like the art.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I don't know how much of it is Frank Miller's work, because I get that sense from reading like the Master Race to kind of go that direction for a while. Like the Master Race like takes a lot of ideas from like Dark Knight 2, and but it doesn't seem like it's written by Frank Miller. Just in the writing style, I think the majority of it's done by Brian Azzarello.
Mm-hmm.
But the Master Race is kind of interesting, like to go off on a tangent for a little bit, because there's Frank Miller's work, like in the past 10 years or so, has been very like focused on like terrorism, and specifically Islamic terrorism, to a level which is uncomfortable, like in its racism.
Right.
And that's caused a lot of people to turn against Frank Miller and to say like, oh, he was never good, which is like one of my biggest pet peeves in fiction, is like when somebody comes out with crap work, like somebody goes, oh, they were never good in the first place,
Right.
It's like, no, they were good. You're just you're like Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith hasn't made a good movie in, I don't know, years.
Yeah.
But Clerks was still a pretty important piece of work. Like you can still say like Clerks was important, without.
Yeah, dude. That reminds me, I want to do an episode where we watch the I think they called it the Northwest trilogy or whatever. Have you his like horror trilogy that he's doing right now? They're like in Canada or whatever.
Yeah, Yoga Hosers.
Yeah, I would like to watch those, so we should watch those and talk about them.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm always up for.
The one has like Johnny Depp in it, like the second one, I think. And the first
he's
one
in both of them.
He's in Tusk too.
Yeah, he's in Tusk too. Okay. He plays the same character, I think. Yeah, I'm definitely up for it, man. They have a substitute marathon on El Rey coming, and I'm like thinking about watching all those.
And Nuke 'Em High.
I love bad movies.
Nuke 'Em High I wasn't familiar with, but it looked pretty good.
Yeah, class of 1999. With Pam Grier, she's a robot teacher.
Yeah, I mean, Master Race is kind of also has the feature where it's got the mini comics in it that are basically feature another Justice League character, and or someone in the DC universe, and those are definitely drawn by Miller, I think.
Yeah, some of them are. Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely drawn in his new style, which is, like I said, pretty grotesque and like, anatomically weird. And it also has some coloring that I don't think is doing it any favors.
Yeah, it's interesting. They made the new Batgirl costume was like bright green and purple or something.
Yeah, it's like weird too because like the rest of the series is obviously, and you can see it's kind of weird because like when like one of the main characters is Kara Zor-El, who is Laura Zor-El.
Laura,
yeah. Superman's daughter, who's the main character in Dark Knight 2. And like when she's on the screen, or on the screen in the on the page. It's just so weird because her costume is just made for like that primary color, and it just like looks so different than like the rest of like the muted colors that are around it. It's just like there's just like this huge like burst of primary color because that's how that costume is designed.
Right.
So it is just really jarring to see like those mini comics in the middle of these muted like Dark Knight Returns like tribute artwork, and
Mm-hmm.
then in the middle you got like the Dark Knight Strikes Again with like crazy Bigfoot cartooning
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
and but like going back to that is like Master Race. There's all like this like I don't know if you picked up on it, but there's this theme about Islamic terrorism that's in that book, and I wonder if that's Azzarello like trying to do Miller, like what he knows Miller would want to do,
Hmm.
or how Miller's involved in that. Because like Dark Knight 3 right now is dealing with Kryptonians that are basically like terrorizing the entire world
Yeah.
and blowing up monuments and so that'll be interesting to see where that goes, I guess.
Apparently, he's gonna do another Dark Knight story too. Is what he says. So um, to follow up Master Race.
Yeah, I think, and he always says, I think that one he's supposedly doing more himself, whereas I
Yeah.
think Azrael is doing the majority of the writing, if not all the writing on this stuff.
Um, yeah. So I mean, I guess I guess we don't really need to spoil this too much in case anyone wants to read it, but we've kind of basically talked about the story and where it leads up to is why Batman retired, which we talked about already. So, but yeah, it was good. It's a one shot. It's like 60 pages. It was $7, so it was a little more money, but it has a nice hardcover, or not hardcover, but how much you call this? It's like bound
Uh,
like a
Stiff, yeah, like a
yeah,
stiff
stiff cover.
paperback.
So yeah, it's nice. It'll sit on your shelf nicely. So, but yeah, the Joker's like the highlight of this book, I think. The Joker and then the characterization of Robin is pretty cool, I think. And then the Joker kind of has this whole subplot of how he's breaking out of Arkham again. And I thought all those parts were really entertaining. The
Yeah,
part where he's telling the riddle to all the inmates about taking crazy people and making them all the same, and like what does that actually make them? And he leads them all on the hook, and so they're all
yeah,
it's kind of
and, it,
like it's good.
and that and that's a really cool page too because it's just like a ton of different panels, like they're all just close-ups of the Joker's like face.
Hmm.
So that was a real cool like visual storytelling device. Uh, yeah, I mean overall, I was surprised by that I liked it so much. Um, so I mean, it's never going to be as good as the Dark Knight Returns, and that's always the problem is when you're trying to do like a tribute to something.
Right.
Uh, it's never going to be as good as the original. I mean, you see it all the time, like in movies. Like whenever somebody does like their like tribute to like famous types of movies, everyone just gets like super excited. It's like, oh yeah, it's going to be like Alien, man. Like Alien's awesome. Alien's like fantastic, and it's like they're doing Alien, and then you see it, and it's like, oh man, that wasn't as good as Alien. Because like, how can it be? You know.
Sure.
So this is going to suffer from the same thing. I mean, like if somebody were to read this and be like, man, this is just a lame like Dark Knight Returns knockoff. Like I can't really combat that criticism because it is like in its essence like a knockoff of the Dark Knight Returns.
Mm.
But I still enjoyed it. I thought it was better than it was, and a lot of that has to do with Romita Jr. and his art, and I just thought it really played well together.
Great. Well, that's basically the main thing we wanted to talk about today, and I don't really have anything else to say. I guess I kind of said my piece earlier. It was like, yeah, if you haven't read this and you're interested in Batman stories at all, it's
Yeah,
the best one. So
If you're interested, send a self-addressed stamped envelope to Clay Smith, and he will mail you a copy.
Yeah, and I guess I for other Miller stuff, like I think I only have like year one, and I've always kind of wanted to read that All Star just because I've always heard it's kind of infamous.
Yeah,
But
it's crazy, man. It is crazy.
someday maybe.
Uh,
But I've never
I'll tell
read
you.
like 300 or Ronin or any of that stuff. So
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. I've got hopefully something coming up on the site talking about uh, like Daredevil and basically like Elektra. And if I have to recommend, like next time I see it, it's not like you have to go out and get it, but I'll let you read it. It's Elektra Lives Again,
hmm
which is a Daredevil story written about that same time with like the same level artwork. I think that's like one of his underrated masterpieces. Like nobody ever talks about it, but it's fantastic.
Hmm.
So
All right. Well, I think that about cuts it for episode 4. Like I said, if you're an audio listener, this will be. That's weird. This guy says Batman Returns came out in 1982. I guess we got that wrong.
no, Dark Knight Returns came out in 1986.
Oh, Batman Returns came out. He's talking about the movie, I
Oh, Batman Returns came out in 1992. That's probably accurate. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Batman Returns. All right.
Yeah, that'd be fun to do the movie sometime too.
So Christopher Walken is great in that movie. There's this part where like Bruce Wayne's talking to him, and he's just like yawn. That's my favorite part of Batman Returns.
Man, I guess I gotta do a better job reading chat. We had like several people in chat saying stuff. Like this guy's like Dave Gibbons, probably when we were looking for the artist.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, thanks chat. I'll try to do a better job next time, like keeping up on that. I wouldn't have to stumble over my words. So, but yeah, maybe yeah. I don't know what we're doing for episode 5, but we'll figure something out. Maybe we'll do something movie related because we haven't really done that for a while. So.
Yeah, it probably won't be on next Monday though, because I'm out of the state. But,
Oh really?
Yeah.
Well,
So,
maybe I'll have a guest. I'll have a guest on.
Sounds good.
Next
Yeah.
week.
Otherwise, I'll be back later in the week. But
All right. Thanks everyone for listening. You can find us on iTunes, Twitch, Gamer Breakfast Live, and Twitter.
Snapchat,
Yeah,
Instagram.
Instagram. But yeah, like I said, I post my Marvel codes. I think on Wednesdays, and well, I post them kind of once a day or something like that until I run out. So yeah, follow the Twitter if you want some free Marvel books, and that's
Yeah.
it. So thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for listening. There'll be new content up hopefully shortly.
Oh yeah, I guess I could talk
Xbox.
about that. There is a review of the Warcraft movie up on the site. I put that up
Oh, there
a
is?
few days ago. It's a pretty quick review, but I basically just kind of said my piece about it. And
Is it a positive review?
yeah, it's half positive, half negative.
Oh, that's
I fall
neutral.
into the trap of the movie I wish it was. But I talk about the movie it was, but then I was, if I could make this movie.
If I could make this movie.
And,
Kickstarter, man.
and also, like as a preview for next week, there'll be a new breakfast review up because General Mills came out with its first new cereal in 15 years called Tiny Toast. And so I've been eating that all week, and so I'll have a good review for that.
Don't give anything away though.
It's pretty small toast.
Let's talk more about social media. So what's your Xbox what's your Xbox Live handle?